The night was quiet on the edge of the colony. Stars hung above the black sky, cold and endless. The human soldier, Daniel, walked alone along the rocky path, his rifle hanging by his side. He was tired from patrol, ready to return, when he heard a sound. It was not the sound of wind, nor the sound of any animal he knew. It was soft, broken. Almost like a sob, he stopped, listening carefully again. The sound came this time a whisper, desperate and shaking. Daniel raised his rifle, moving slowly toward the dark bushes near the cliff. His boots crunched softly over the stones. When he pulled the branches apart, he froze. There, crouched in the shadows, was a girl, not human, but small, fragile, and glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her skin was pale silver, her eyes too large for her face. She trembled, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. She looked up at him, fear mixed with hope. Her lips moved, and she spoke words that startled him. "Please, let me taste your strength," she begged, her voice shaking. Daniel blinked, not sure if he had heard correctly. He lowered the rifle but kept his guard up. "What did you say?" he asked carefully. The alien girl pushed herself forward, crawling weakly until she was at his boots. She lifted her hands, palms open, showing she held no weapon. "Your strength," she whispered. "I need it, or they will kill me." Daniel's heart pounded. This was not what he had expected tonight. He looked around the dark hills, expecting to see enemies waiting in the shadows. But the night was empty, silent text for her trembling breath. "Who are you?" he asked. Her voice cracked as she replied, "I am Leary, of the Shalani. But my people cast me out. They said I was weak." She looked down, tears shining in her wide eyes. "Now the hunters follow me. And if I cannot taste strength, I will not survive the night." Daniel frowned. He did not understand her words, not fully, but he could see the truth in her body, thin, starving, afraid. She was not dangerous, at least not to him. Yet what did she mean by taste? Before he could ask, she grabbed at his arm. Her fingers were cold, shaking, but her grip was firm. "Please," she said again. "You are human. They say humans are strong. Stronger than any." She pressed her forehead against his arm. As if drawing something invisible, Daniel stiffened, unsure if he should push her away. But then he saw her eyes wide, desperate, begging for life from the dark hills. A sound suddenly echoed, a long howl, followed by the clash of metal. Daniel raised his rifle at once. The girl gasped, clutching his sleeve tightly. "They are here," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. "They come for me, Daniel." Scanned the ridges, his soldier's training kicking in. He could not see them yet, but he felt eyes watching, predators waiting, hunting. He knelt beside the girl, forcing her to look at him. "Who is coming?" he asked. Her answer was a single word that sent chills down his spine. Hunters. Daniel knew then that this was no coincidence. This girl was not lost, she was prey. And by finding her, he had stepped into something bigger than himself. The girl held his arm tighter, whispering in fear, "If I taste your strength, they cannot break me. Please, human, please." Her words made no sense to him, but the fear in her eyes was real. The sound of footsteps grew louder from the ridge. Shadows moved in the starlight, spreading out, circling. Daniel tightened his grip on the rifle. He could walk away, leave her here, pretend he never saw, but something in him refused. The girl's small body shook beside him. Her voice cracked as she begged again, "Do not let them take me, human. I will do anything, but let me taste your strength." The footsteps stopped. Silence fell from the darkness. A voice hissed, "Give us the weak one, human. Walk away, and we will not harm you." Daniel stood tall, pulling the girl behind him. His rifle pointed forward, his voice hard. "She stays with me," he said. The hunters laughed from the shadows. Their glowing eyes burned in the night. The Girl gasped, hiding her face against his back. Daniel's heart raced, but his jaw set firm. Whatever tasting strength meant, whatever danger she carried. He knew one thing. He would not abandon her. And in that moment, the tiny alien girl's fate became tied to his. The first spark of a bond neither of them yet understood. Asterisk, the night air grew heavy. Daniel could feel danger pressing in from all sides. The girl, Leary, clung to his arm, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Her silver eyes darted around the rocks, wide with fear. The shadows on the ridges shifted, figures moving, circling, waiting. Daniel raised his rifle, his finger close to the trigger. He had fought many battles, but this felt different. These were not soldiers. They were predators. They wanted the girl, and they wanted her alive. One of the hunters stepped forward into the moonlight. He was tall, his skin dark and scaled like armor. His face stretched into a cruel smile. His teeth sharp and glinting. A spear rested in his clawed hand. Glowing faintly with energy, "Human," the hunter hissed. "You have no claim over her. She belongs to us. Weak blood is hunted. That is the law." Daniel's jaw tightened. He kept his rifle steady, eyes locked on the enemy. "She stays with me," he said firmly. The hunter laughed, a cold, mocking sound that echoed through the cliffs. "You think your strength can protect her? Even her own people cast her out. Step aside, and we may let you live." Behind him, the other hunters growled. There were at least 6 of them, maybe more, hidden in the dark. Their weapons glowed, their eyes burned. They smelled of blood and smoke. Leary whimpered, pressing her face against Daniel's back. "Please, human, don't leave me," she whispered. Daniel glanced down at her for a moment. Her body was so small, fragile. Yet she held on to him with everything she had. He could walk away, save himself, but deep inside he knew he couldn't. This wasn't about orders, or duty, or even survival. It was about her. He would not let her be taken. The hunter leader stepped closer. "You don't understand," he growled. "She is Shalani. Their weakness spreads, if not cleansed. She begged you to share your strength, didn't she?" Pathetic little ritual, as if it could change what she is. Leary gasped at his words, her grip on Daniel's arm tightening. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered so only Daniel could hear. "It is true. My people believe strength can be shared. If I bond with you, they cannot call me weak anymore." Daniel blinked. He didn't understand her culture, but he understood this. She was desperate to live. And these hunters would kill her just to keep her weak. The hunter leader snarled, raising his glowing spear. "Last chance, human, step aside." Daniel's answer came sharp and cold. No. The silence after that word was heavy. Then the hunters moved, spreading out, closing in like wolves. Their weapons crackled with light. Daniel aimed and fired. The rifle's roar echoed through the cliffs. One hunter staggered back, wounded but not dead. The others hissed and lunged forward. Daniel grabbed Leary, pushing her behind a boulder. "Stay low. Don't move," he ordered. She nodded quickly, though her eyes were wide with fear. The hunters attacked. Fast and merciless, Daniel fired again, his shots striking sparks off their armor. One spear flew past his head, smashing into the stone behind him. Dust filled the air, the night alive with fire and steel. Daniel rolled, firing from the ground. One hunter collapsed with a scream. Another retreated with a burned arm. But there were too many. They were stronger, faster, and they knew the terrain. From behind the rock, Leary cried out, "Daniel! Behind you!" He spun just in time to block a spear with his rifle. The force knocked him down, but he kicked upward, sending the hunter stumbling back. He scrambled to his feet, breathing hard. He was fighting not just for himself, but for the girl who believed he could save her. The hunters paused, circling again. They hissed to each other in their guttural tongue. The leader stepped forward once more, his smile sharper. "You fight well, human, but you cannot fight forever. Give us the girl, and we'll let you die quickly." Daniel wiped the blood from his cheek. His chest burned, his arms ached, but he looked back at Leary, curled up, staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. She whispered, "Don't give me to them. Please." He turned back to the hunters, his voice steady, his rifle raised again. "You want her? You'll have to go through me." For the first time, the hunters hesitated. They had not expected a human to stand his ground. They glanced at each other, uneasy. The leader snarled, lifting his spear high, "Then you will die with her." The air grew tense, heavy with the promise of blood. Leary clutched her chest, whispering over and over, "Please, let me taste your strength. Only then can I survive this night." Daniel heard her words, even as the hunters roared and charged. Again, he did not yet understand what her plea meant. But he knew one thing. He would fight until his last breath. And as the hunters closed in, the bond between the human and the tiny alien girl only grew stronger. A bond the hunters could not see yet. It was already changing everything. The hunters charged with a roar. Their glowing spears cut through the night like fire. Daniel braced himself, his rifle flashing. Shots rang out, echoing off the cliffs. One hunter fell, clutching his chest. But the others pressed harder. Leary crouched behind the boulder, her hands covering her ears. Her wide silver eyes never left Daniel. Every blast of his rifle, every strike of the hunters made her tremble. But her gaze burned with something new. Not only fear, but awe. Daniel moved like a storm. He ducked, rolled, and fired. He used tricks the hunters did not expect. A burst of sand thrown into one's eyes, a sharp strike with the butt of his rifle to knock another off balance. They had strength, but he had skill, and he refused to fall. The leader of the hunters growled, his voice shaking with anger. "This is madness. A single human cannot stand against the law of the Shalani." Daniel answered, with steel in his voice, "Maybe your law is wrong." The hunters hesitated at his words. They had never been challenged like this. Humans were supposed to be strange. Outsiders, weak in number, far from home. Yet here was one standing between them and their prey, and he was not giving an inch. Leary pressed her hand to her chest. Her heart pounded as she watched. Her people had always spoken of humans with caution, creatures from a faraway world, untamed and dangerous. But seeing Daniel fight, she realized their strength was not just muscle, it was something deeper, something fierce and unbroken. She whispered to herself, "Yes. This is what strength means." The hunters regrouped, circling Daniel. Their eyes glowed with hate. One lunged forward, spear raised. Daniel sidestepped, grabbing the shaft. With a grunt, he twisted it free, driving the hunter into the ground. The weapon crackled in his hands, but he held firm. Now he stood armed with their own weapon. The leader hissed in rage, "Enough. End him." 3 hunters rushed at once. Daniel swung the spear, its energy slicing through the air. It smashed into one attacker's chest. Throwing him back, another lunged low, but Daniel kicked him aside. The third spear grazed his arm, leaving a searing burn. Daniel winced, but refused to drop the weapon. Blood dripped down his sleeve, but he stood tall, chest heaving. He shouted at them, voice echoing through the night, "You want her? You'll have to kill me first." For a moment, the hunters faltered. Leary's breath caught in her throat. To her, the sight was more than a battle. It was a clash of 2 worlds, her people's cruel law against the will of a single human. The leader snarled, "You do not understand. Human, she is weak. Her blood is cursed. If she lives, it spreads weakness through us all." Leary's tears spilled. her small body shaking. She cried out, "No. That is a lie. I am not cursed. I am alive." Her voice cracked, but Daniel turned his head slightly. He saw the fire in her eyes, fragile, yet burning. He faced the hunters again. "Cursed or not, she's under my protection," he growled. "Try to take her, and you'll see what human strength really means." The hunters hissed, rage boiling, but deep inside. Doubt crept into them. This one human was tearing apart everything they believed. His will was not breaking. His strength was not fading. And the girl they called weak was beginning to stand taller behind him. The leader roared, charging straight at Daniel. Their weapons clashed trifle against spear. The sound cracked like thunder in the night. Daniel's muscles screamed. The force nearly drove him to his knees, but he held on, teeth gritted. Eyes locked on the beast before him. Leary's voice broke through the chaos. "Daniel, don't give up, please. Let me taste your strength." Her words gave him a surge of resolve. He shoved the leader back with all his might, then drove the glowing spear into the ground between them. The earth shook, sparks flaring into the sky. The hunters froze, their eyes wide. Daniel stood there, chest heaving, blood on his arm. But his eyes blazed with unshakable fire. "Strength is not about blood, or law, or fear," he shouted. "Strength is standing when the world tells you to kneel. And I will never kneel." Silence fell over the battlefield. Even the hunters could not hide their hesitation now. They had never seen such defiance. Leary stared at him, tears running down her cheeks, but her lips curved into a trembling smile. In that moment, she knew he was more than a protector. He was proof that her people had been wrong all along. The hunters pulled back slowly. Growling among themselves, the leader snarled, but raised his hand. "Enough, for now. But this is not over. Human?" Their glowing eyes faded into the dark as they retreated, their voices echoing with threats. "We will return, and when we do, neither of you will survive." Daniel lowered his rifle. Breathing hard, he turned back to the girl, who was still crouched behind the boulder. She looked at him with wide, shining eyes. Her voice soft, but full of something new. "You fought for me. Even when you didn't know me." Daniel wiped the blood from his arm. He gave her a tired but firm nod. "You're not alone anymore," he said, for the first time. Leary felt warmth in her chest. She whispered, almost to herself, "Your strength. It's not just power, something more." The night was not safe yet. The hunters would come again, stronger and angrier. But in that moment, under the cold stars, a bond had been forged, one that would change not only their fates, but the fate of two worlds. The fire burned low in the small cave. Shadows flickered on the stone walls. Daniel sat near the entrance, his rifle across his knees. The night outside was quiet, but he knew the hunters had not gone far. They would return, stronger and in greater numbers. He had to be ready, behind him. Leary sat curled near the fire. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the warm light. She hugged her knees, her large eyes watching him carefully. Every now and then, her lips parted, as if she wanted to speak, but then she fell silent again. Daniel noticed, but he did not push her. He waited, knowing she carried secrets. Finally, Leary's voice came soft. "You don't understand why they hunt me," she whispered. Daniel turned his head, his eyes steady. "Then tell me," he said simply. Her small hands tightened on her knees. "My people, the Shalani. Once we were strong. We lived in great cities that touched the stars. But long ago, something changed. We began to fear weakness more than anything." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Her eyes glistened in the firelight. "Children born small, or slow, or fragile, were cast out. We believed weakness spread like sickness. So the strong made laws, they said. The weak must be hunted. So the clan stays pure. Daniel's chest tightened. He looked at her so small, trembling, yet trying to hold her voice steady. And you? He asked gently. She lowered her gaze. I was born too small. My parents tried to hide me. But the hunters came, they marked me. Weak, so I ran. And I kept running. Her voice broke then. She pressed her face against her arms. I was never meant to survive, but I wanted to live. Daniel felt a weight in his chest. He thought of his own people. Humans had many flaws, but to throw away. Children for being small, that was beyond cruel. He set the rifle aside and leaned forward. You survived, didn't you? That already makes you stronger than they know. Her eyes lifted to his, wide and wet with tears. But in our law, only strength from another can protect me. That is why I begged you. We call it the right of tasting. If a weak one shares the strength of a warrior, they cannot be hunted. Daniel studied her carefully. So when you said you wanted to taste my strength, you weren't lying. She shook her head quickly. No, I wasn't. It is not about food or blood. It is about spirit, a bond. I take courage from you. And in return, I live. Without it, I will be hunted until the end. Daniel leaned back against the stone. Her words settled heavy in his mind. It wasn't just survival, it was a culture. Built on fear, she was asking him not just to protect her, but to change her fate, and maybe more. The fire crackled, filling the silence. Leary's voice came again. Smaller this time. When I touched your arm, I felt it, your strength. It is different from Shalani. It is not only muscle, not only speed, it is will. It burns like fire, and I want to carry it, even if only a little. Daniel looked at her. Her eyes shone with both desperation and hope. He thought of the way she had clung to him in battle, the way she trembled, yet still cried out against her people's cruel law. There was no weakness in her heart, only the will to survive. You don't need my strength to prove you're alive, Daniel said quietly. You already have it. She shook her head fiercely. No, Daniel, you don't understand. Without the right, they will never stop hunting me. They will chase me across worlds. But if I bond with you, they cannot touch me. You will be my shield. Daniel's jaw tightened. He had been a soldier long enough to know what such a promise meant. It was not something to take lightly. Yet as he looked at her, this tiny alien girl who had been thrown away by her people, he felt a pull inside him. He could not deny it. He nodded slowly. Then, if that's what it takes, I'll be your shield. Her lips parted, her breath catching tears welled in her eyes again, but this time they were not only from fear. Truly. You mean it? Daniel gave a small smile. Yeah, I mean it. For a long moment, she stared at him. Then she leaned forward, her forehead touching his arm just as before. Her body trembled, but her voice was steady. Then you are my strength. Now, she whispered, and I'm no longer weak. Outside the cave, the wind shifted, far away. The hunters howled in the darkness. They were still searching, still waiting. But inside, a bond had been made fragile, new, yet unbreakable. Daniel tightened his grip on the rifle. He knew the fight was not over. But now, it was not only his fight. He was carrying her hope. And together, they would face whatever came next. The first light of dawn touched the horizon. Daniel stepped out of the cave, his rifle ready. The air was sharp and cold. The valley below still wrapped in shadows. But his soldier's instinct told him one thing: this was not safety. Only pause. Behind him, Leary stirred, her silver eyes blinking open. She looked small and tired, yet something inside her had changed since the night before. Her voice no longer trembled so much. She carried his promise like a shield. Are they gone? She asked softly. Daniel shook his head, scanning the ridges. No, they won't stop Hunters don't give up, not until their prey is caught. Her lips tightened. Then we must move, she said. Daniel gave a short nod. They packed quickly, carrying little only his rifle, some rations, and her thin blanket. Every step from now on would be dangerous. They moved down into the valley. The wilds stretched before them. Vast and unforgiving, tall cliffs rose on each side, and twisted trees clawed at the sky. The ground was rough, filled with sharp stones and deep cracks. It was the kind of land where a mistake could mean death. And yet, Daniel felt eyes on them. The hunters were out there, following, waiting for the right moment. Hours passed. The sun rose higher, heating the rocks. Daniel kept his pace steady, scanning ahead for signs of ambush. Leary struggled to keep up. Her legs shorter, her breath unsteady, but she never asked to stop. She clenched her fists, determination shining in her eyes. At one point, she stumbled. Daniel caught her before she fell. Her body was light, almost too light. "You need rest," he said firmly. She shook her head. "If I rest, they'll catch us. I must walk. I must prove I can endure." Daniel looked at her for a moment. Her willpower reminded him of recruits back on Earthsmall. Untrained but burning with fire, he let her continue, though he slowed his pace. He would not let her break. By midday, they reached a broken ridge. Below stretched a forest of black trees, their branches sharp like spears, a place dark even in the sun. Daniel's gut tightened. Perfect ground for an ambush. But they had no choice. "We go through," he said. Leary swallowed hard, but nodded. They entered the forest. The air grew heavy, every sound muffled. Daniel's eyes scanned the shadows. Finger near the trigger. Birds scattered above them, and for a moment, silence fell to silent. Then a howl split the air. The hunters' shadows darted between the trees, glowing eyes flashing. "They found us." Leary cried, "Keep running." Daniel shouted, grabbing her hand. They sprinted through the forest, branches clawing at their skin. Spears whistled through the air, striking the trees. One grazed Daniel's shoulder, burning deep into his flesh. He gritted his teeth, refusing to slow. Leary gasped, tears in her eyes. "You're hurt." "Doesn't matter," he growled. "Move." They broke into a clearing, breathless, but the hunters closed in. Stepping from the trees like shadows given form, Daniel raised his rifle, firing burst after burst. 2 hunters dropped, but more appeared. Circling, Leary clung to his side, her voice trembling but strong. "They won't stop, Daniel. They want me more than life itself." He shoved her behind him. "Then they'll have to go through me." The leader hissed from the shadows. "Human, why do you fight for what is weak? She is nothing. Her kind is nothing. Why waste your blood?" Daniel spat into the dirt. "Because she's alive, and that's reason enough." His voice cut through the clearing like steel. Even Leary gasped, her heart pounding at his words. The hunters charged again. Daniel fought with everything he had. His rifle roared. The stolen spear flashed. But they pressed harder, their numbers endless. One struck his side, forcing him to stumble. Another clawed his back, leaving deep lines of blood. Leary screamed, throwing herself forward. "No? Leave him." She stood before Daniel, her tiny body shaking. Her silver eyes glowed with tears, but also fire. "Your law is broken." She shouted, "I am not weak because he gave me strength." The hunters froze. Her words cut through the forest louder. Then the rifle. Daniel, bleeding but unbroken, stood beside her. Together, they glared at the hunters. A fragile girl and a wounded human, yet unyielding, for the first time. Doubt flickered in the hunters' eyes. Their law said weakness must die. But here stood weakness defying them, shielded by a human whose will could not be broken. The leader snarled in rage. "This is not over. You can run, human, but every step we will follow." Until she is ash in the dirt, the hunters vanished back into the shadows. The forest fell silent again. Daniel staggered, nearly falling. Leary caught his arm, her small body barely able to hold him up. Her voice shook, but it carried strength. "I will not let you fall. You gave me strength now. I will carry you." Daniel looked down at her, surprised by the fire in her eyes for the first time. He realized the bond was not one way. She was no longer only taking, she was giving. And that made them both stronger. The chase was not over. The wilds stretched far ahead. The hunters would return, fiercer than before, but together. Human and alien moved forward, not as prey and protector, but as something new. The sun dipped low, painting the wilds in blood-red light. Daniel leaned against a jagged rock, his breathing heavy, his wounds burned. His arm throbbed, but he refused to collapse. Leary stood close, her small hands pressing against his side to stop the bleeding. Her silver eyes glowed with worry, yet also fierce determination. "They won't stop, Daniel," she whispered. "They will come again, and this time, they will bring all of them." Daniel gave a faint smile, tired but steady. "Then let them. We'll face them together." The words struck her like a spark. Her chest tightened, her heart raced. For the first time in her life, she was not running, she was standing because he was beside her. The night came quickly. The forest turned into a dark maze, and then the hunters appeared. Dozens of glowing eyes moving through the shadows. The leader's voice cut through the silence, sharp as a blade, "Human, you cannot fight us all. Give her to us, and we will let you live. Refuse, and you both die here." Daniel gripped his rifle. The weapon was almost empty. He knew his chances, but he did not flinch. "She's mine to protect," he growled. "If you want her, you'll have to kill me first," the hunters hissed, their voices rising like a storm. They surged forward, spears flashing with light. Daniel fired. The blasts lighting the trees, 2 hunters fell, but more rushed in. One struck his shoulder, another cut across his chest. Pain tore through him. Yet he stood, teeth gritted, refusing to fall. "Daniel!" Leary cried, her small voice breaking. Her hands shook, her heart screamed. She could not watch him break, not for her. Tears spilled as she threw herself forward, clinging to his back. "Let me taste your strength," she begged. "Now please, let me take it." Daniel staggered, blood dripping from his side. He did not understand what she meant, not fully, but in that moment, with death surrounding them, he gave in. He placed his hand over hers. "Take it," he whispered. "Take whatever you need." A strange warmth flowed between them, not of blood or body, but of spirit. Leary gasped, her silver eyes shining brighter. She felt his will, his fire, his unbroken courage. It rushed into her chest like lightning, filling every corner of her fragile body. Her trembling stopped, her fear melted. She stood taller, her voice stronger than ever before. "No more running," she whispered. Then she screamed, her voice shaking the forest. "I am not weak." The hunters faltered, their charge slowing. They stared at her in shock. The tiny alien girl who had always cowered now stood blazing with new strength. Daniel, though bleeding, grinned through the pain. "That's it, Leary. Show them." The leader roared, furious. "Lies. Strength cannot be shared. She is nothing." He lunged forward, his spear aimed at Leary, but Daniel blocked it, the force slamming into him. And then, with her small hands gripping his arm, Leary pushed two together. They shoved the hunter back. Their voices rose as one. "She is not nothing." Daniel roared, "I am not weak." Leary cried. The forest shook with the clash. Hunter after hunter rushed, but they fought side by side. Daniel's rifle cracked, his fist struck. Leary clung to him, her courage burning like fire, every time. He faltered. She whispered, "Stand, Daniel. Stand," every time she trembled. He answered, "I've got you." The hunters began to fall back. Confusion spread through them. Their law was clear. The weak must die, but here weakness stood. Unbroken, fused with human will, it was something they had no words for, something that shattered their belief. The leader, enraged, charged one last time. Daniel met him head-on. The two clashed in the clearing. Weapon against weapon, the ground shook under the impact. The leader roared, forcing Daniel down. But Leary pressed her forehead to his arm again, whispering, "You are my strength. And I am yours." Power surged through Daniel with a roar. He twisted the spear free and drove it into the earth. The blast of light exploded outward. The leader was thrown back, crashing into the trees. Broken, silence fell. The remaining hunters froze, their glowing eyes wide with fear. Never had they seen such a thing. A human and a weak one standing together. Strength shared, weakness defied. They melted back into the shadows, vanishing into the forest. Their law shattered, their leader defeated. For now, the hunt was broken. Daniel collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving. Leary dropped beside him, her small arms wrapping around his shoulders. Tears ran down her cheeks, but they were not only tears of fear, they were tears of triumph. "You gave me your strength," she whispered, "and I gave it back to you." Daniel looked at her, bloody and exhausted, but a smile curved his lips. "Then we're even." In her heart, she knew it was more than that. They were no longer hunter and prey, protector and weak. They were bound. And nothing in the wilds could break that bond now. The night sky opened above them. Stars shone down. Brighter than before, Leary leaned against him, her voice soft. "You carried me, Daniel. Now I will carry you." And in that quiet moment, both human and alien understood together. They were something new. The night passed slowly. Daniel and Leary rested beneath the broken trees. The firelight flickered against the scars of battle. Daniel's body was weak, his wounds deep, but he was alive, and beside him, the tiny alien girl refused to let go of his hand. When the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, Leary stirred, her silver eyes opened, glowing softly in the morning light. For the first time since Daniel had found her, she did not tremble. Instead, she looked out at the rising sun with quiet strength. "The hunters are gone," Daniel murmured, his voice rough but steady. "For now," she answered, "but they will not forget. Their law is broken. They will never forgive what we did." Daniel shifted. Wincing as pain shot through his side, he gave a tired grin. "Then let them come. We'll break their law again and again until they stop." Her lips parted, her heart swelling with something she had never known before: hope. The bond they had forged in fire and blood was more than survival. It was proof. Weakness was not a curse. It could be turned into strength. Together, they had proved it. By midday, they reached the edge of the valley. Beyond the cliffs, green plains stretched wide. On the far side, smoke curled into the air, signs of a village. Leary froze, her breath catching. "My people," she whispered. Daniel glanced at her. "Will they welcome you?" She shook her head. "They cast me out. To them, I am weak. They will not see what has changed." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we'll show them," he said firmly. "You don't walk alone anymore, with every step toward." The village. Leary's chest tightened. Memories of shame, of whispers, of being chased. But beside her walked a human who refused to bow to their law, and somehow that gave her courage to keep walking. When they reached the gates, the villagers Gathered tall Shalani with proud stances and hard eyes, they murmured when they saw her, the outcast who should have been dead. And beside her a human, wounded yet unbroken. The elder stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You have no right to return, Leary. You are weak. You are nothing." Leary trembled, the old fear clawing at her heart. But then she felt Daniel's hand steady on her back. His voice, low but strong, "Tell them who you are." She lifted her chin, her silver eyes burning bright. "I am Leary of the Shalani," she declared. "I was cast out, hunted, marked weak, but I lived. I stood against the hunters, and I am alive because I shared the strength of a human." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The elder sneered. "Lies. Strength cannot be shared. This is nothing but weakness, hiding behind an outsider." Daniel stepped forward, his voice cutting like steel. "Then look at her. Do you see weakness? She faced death. She stood beside me in battle. She has more courage than any of you. If that is weakness, then maybe your law is broken." Silence fell heavy. The Shalani whispered among themselves, eyes shifting. For generations, they had believed strength was only for the chosen. But here was a girl who had defied hunters with nothing but her will. And a human who had given his blood to protect her. Leary's chest rose and fell. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "You said weakness must die, but I live. You said I was nothing, but here I stand if you still call me weak. Then you are blind." The crowd stirred, doubts spreading through them like fire. Some lowered their eyes, others clenched their fists. The elder's face twisted with anger. He raised his hand, ready to command the hunters again. But the hunters were not there. They had fled, defeated by the bond between human and girl. Daniel's hand rested on his rifle. "If you try to take her again, you'll find out how strong humans really are." The threat was quiet, but it struck like thunder. The elder hesitated, his power cracking, and for the first time, Leary saw fear in his eyes. She turned away from him, her voice soft, but carrying through the crowd. "I don't need your law anymore, 'cause I have something greater. I have strength shared and strength given, and with him I am not afraid." Daniel glanced at her, a small smile on his lips. Her words were no longer those of a trembling child. They were the words of someone reborn. The villagers did not move. Some still clung to the old law, but others saw the truth. The tiny girl they once abandoned had returned, not broken, but stronger. Stronger because of the bond she carried. That night, Daniel and Leary sat on a hill outside the village. The stars burned above them, endless and cold. Leary leaned against his side, her voice soft. "Your strength saved me, Daniel, but more than that, your heart changed me." Daniel looked down at her. "You melted in my arms once, remember? But you didn't melt from fear. You melted because you finally believed in yourself." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "Yes, and now, no matter what comes, I will never run again." The dawn rose, bright and golden. A new day for both of them. The human who refused to bow, and the tiny alien girl who was no longer weak. Together, they walked forward not as prey and protector, but as something the galaxy had never seen before.